Hey now everyone, Matt from the Star Wars Time Show, and I'm here to break down and recap and spin, whatever you want to call it, the final issue in the War of the Bounty Hunters main run, which was issue number 5. So while there are, I believe, a few more single tie-in issues to come out, War of the Bounty Hunters number 5 definitely put the main plot to rest. We learned what Crimson Dawn was up to, their whole plan with Han Solo, so let's get down to it and find out how Crimson Dawn pulled off their maneuver to realign the power in the galaxy, as well as some interesting factions that are a part of their gang. Okay, so things kind of kick off where we've been spinning the tires for the last few issues across the main run and the crossover issues, and that is everyone, including the Hutts, bounty hunters, rebels. They're all trying to get a hold of this stalled Imperial shuttle that the rebels helped to take down, but they were taken out by Boba. So yeah, we're still here. And of course, Boku shows up and tries to flex his fat by having his henchmen try to reel in the shuttle. All right, but Boba Fett had other plans, so eventually the shuttle just started working again, and it was able to land on the Executor. So Fett, using his previous ties to Darth Vader and some old landing codes, actually is like, you know what, Valance, instead of screwing around and trying to get mixed up in a battle with the Hutts and in a shootout, I'm just going to try to radio in and see if the Empire will let me land. And sure as shit, they do. It was an old code, I'm assuming he had from his Empire Strikes Back days, but he and Valance do get invited to land on the Executor, albeit with the plan to steal Han for themselves. While this is going on, the rebels also eventually get the Falcon fixed from the seismic blast that took it out a few issues back, but they too get a very odd invite to go ahead and land on the Executor. And as we find out in the comic, the reason they were allowed to land on the Executor is because Crimson Dawn has assets in the Empire, which is probably going to play into some of the sequels coming out for this War of the Bounty Hunters run, first starting in December with Reign, and then I'll tease it at the end of this breakdown, but it looks like we're getting some hidden Empire content as well. All right, so the rebels are on Vader's ship. Boba Fett and Valance are on Vader's ship, but the Hutts are still out there trying to start a fight with Vader's ship, and it's not going to go well for them. Boku's desires here are definitely not going to end well for him and the Hutt Council, but more on that later. So, like I said, the Hutts decide to just go balls to the wall, or, slug tails to the wall, and they start attacking the Executor. And of course, they pretty much get their ass kicked. All right, the ties come out, get some nice looking panels in here. But yeah, the Hutts are being foolish right now, or at least everyone but Jabba, because his fat ass is already back home on Tatooine, chilling and eating some frog soup. All right, so back on the Executor, like I said, remember, Boba and Valance were allowed to land, and they had a deal, and the deal was like, listen, we'll help each other until we won't, and Boba just does a perfect kind of double cross on him. He's like, hey, Valance, you remember when I said that when it's time, we're going to kind of figure out our own plan, and who the best bounty hunter will get Solo? Well, Boba proved once again he is the best, because while they are talking and working on a plan, he throws a thermal detonator right into Valance. It sticks to him, and as you can see, just blows him wide open and takes him out of commission. I don't know, man. It's just some classic vintage Fett stuff here, just double-crossing his allies. So while he's bound by honor and he follows some sort of code, he's definitely not afraid to mess with his fellow bounty hunters. All right, so you remember we left Luke and Vader. They're kind of playing a game of space tag with each other in their ships. They're both talking shit to each other. Vader's like, you're a punk, you're a loser, you have no strength without your friends, yada, yada, yada. But over the radio, Vader kind of gets a call like, listen, man, the Emperor wants you to help out with the Hutts. So like a good loyal lapdog, he pulls off, let Luke escape, and he goes and does what his master is bidding him to do. So, back on the Executor, the rebels find Han. So, at some point in time before Return of the Jedi, Leia, Chewie, Lando, and I don't know if Lobot was on the ship, but they were in possession of Han in Carbonite. But as we know, that's not how the story played out. Thanks to a missile strike that hits the side of the Executor, just as Boba Fett shows up to pretty much tell them, like, oh, hold on, he's mine. Don't make me kill you. I'm taking him. But due to that missile strike, we get a little bit of a hole in the hull, and of course, gravity does its thing and sucks Solo out of the hole into space. No! So that's why the rebels didn't get him at this point in time and had to wait until Return of the Jedi. Meanwhile, like I said, remember, the Emperor sent our buddy Vader to deal with the Hutts for their insolence. And what he does, he doesn't wipe out the fleet, he doesn't get, flashy, he just lands right on their bridge and proceeds to murder essentially the entire Hutt Council. So that's probably why Jabba is, the King Slug by the time we see him in Return of the Jedi. There's really no council to report to anymore. He is the Hutt clan at this point in time, and it was thanks to a little help from his buddy Darth Vader. Okay, so remember, Han and Carbonite floating out in space. Boba Fett's got a jetpack and apparently a pressurized suit because he's like, screw you, rebels, I can still get him. And he zips out, uses his radar, finds Han, and we get just a fantastic looking panel of this guy almost going fishing for Han and Carbonite and pulling him out of this watery surface of the planet that all this action has been taking place above on. All right, and then we get the kind of the full scope finally as the issue ends. Crimson Dawn via Qi'ra, we get why she put this plan in place. And again, the plan was stealing Han and Carbonite and then kind of pitting every faction in the galaxy against each other by putting them up for bid. And what she says essentially is like, this was good. Our plan worked. And while I wish we could have saved Han and given him back to his friends, the main goal we had, again, of this whole War of the Bounty Hunters was to cause division between the Empire and the Hutts, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, crime syndicate, to allow for Crimson Dawn to kind of take more and more power as there is going to be a bit of a vacuum now that the entire Hutt Council is wiped out. But she also references, like, hey, we probably got some new enemies in Aphra, which we've learned about in the Aphra crossovers. But she also says, you know what, we might have new allies, and that's because blown-up Valance may want a little revenge on behalf of Crimson Dawn for what Boba Fett did to him. So, in the end, Qi'ra did all this to disrupt the balance of power, and more so to cause the greatest division yet between the Empire and the Hutts, which she believes will allow Crimson Dawn to take over more and more and more power. Interestingly, and this is kind of the title lead here, we learn that Crimson Dawn is much bigger and much more secretive than was let on before. Because as you can see, as she's addressing her people, look who's with her. The Knights of freaking Ren. I mean, Ren himself is there, as well as a few that we saw in the sequel trilogy. You got this little mini Knight of Ren. Who knows what's going on there? And I even believe the Togruta and that tiger-looking dude could be in Ren's little gang. So yeah, the Knights of Ren were a part of Crimson Dawn. So there's potential that Crimson Dawn, in some form or fashion, may lead into or help the First Order come to power. You never know. Maybe this could even open the door for them to show up in Book of Boba Fett, The Mandalorian, and become part of that timeline in terms of, what were they doing? Were they helping the First Order rise? What is this hidden empire stuff? So a pretty cool payoff here with plenty more to come in sequel series that have been planned for Crimson Dawn and Qi'ra. So, we get that plan revealed to us, but there's a bit of an epilogue, and as fans, it's kind of cool to see the actual delivery of Han Solo and Carbonite to Jabba's palace. This is it right here. After all of that ruckus, Boba still paid off on the job he was given and delivers Han to Jabba. So, kind of a cool thing to see, just lore-wise for us die-hard Star Wars fanboys and girls. There was also some interesting conversation between Jabba and Boba. He's like, listen, man, hang out with me. You're my boy. And Boba's like, you know what, dude? You should just get rid of Solo. Solo's a problem, right? He's like, if it were up to me, I'd just chuck him in the Sarlacc pit right now. But, Jabba, and we know through ROTJ that he does end up keeping him as a piece of wall art. But, I found it interesting that Boba still kind of has a hard-on for Solo, which, again, may lead to new stories between the two, either in comics or in the Mandalorian timeline shows. Who knows? Just doing a little speculating. And then, of course, we end with a fantastic shot of our boy Fett. He is, the hero. He was successful. He managed to snag Han and Carbonite out of the clutches of the Empire, the Rebels, the Hutts, you name it. The dude did it, and he wants paid. And I'm sure Jabba will pay him. All right, so that's it for the War of the Bounty Hunters. But like I said, this last panel here does tease that Crimson Reign is next, which is probably going to show more of Kira's plan now that she's executed Phase 1. And then after that, it is teased it will continue on in Hidden Empire. So with the idea that, she's got assets within the Empire working for Crimson Dawn, the Knights of Ren, there's just a lot of possibilities moving forward with these two sequels, and I'm excited. So overall, War of the Bounty Hunters as a whole was pretty fantastic. Some of the, single issues were a little repetitive. Some of the crossover issues were a bit useless, but I dug it overall. So here we go. Boba Fett for president. All right, thank you, everyone. Again, this is Matt from the Star Wars Time Show, which we would love for you to tune into every Tuesday on our live stream or through our podcast platforms on Wednesday when we put out the audio-only version. You can do so by hitting the links down in the description. And if you like this or you like the Star Wars Time Show, make sure you subscribe to the channel by hitting that button down there, liking the video, leaving a comment. You know what to do. May the Force be with all of you, right? Because if you do listen to the Star Wars Time Show, it surely will always be with you. The Force, that is.